Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schaumler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 561, recording late on a Friday night. It has been a fun week. It has been a big and busy week. I have already kind of started preparing round 2 of predictions, if I'm totally honest. I'm already looking at where can I adjust and give a win here, take away a win there? Who do I feel better about or feel worse about? I love this stuff. It's been really fun hearing all the feedback and having really fun conversations with people who listen to the show or people who write in or just hearing feedback in general from YouTube comments. I really genuinely love this stuff, and I try to be very honest. I am listening to feedback, and it's been fun, educating myself and do the best I can. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We still have to finish round 1 of predictions, which today we're doing the AFC and NFC South. That is New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina, Tampa, Houston, the Jaguars, Tennessee, Indy. There's a reason I left the South for last, if I'm totally honest. These are probably the worst 2 divisions in football, or the least interesting, maybe. I don't know. Who's the worst division? That's not a conversation I want to have too deeply. I don't care that much, but got a lot of bad teams in this this trio of, I guess, what do you call 8 teams? An 8-tuplet? I don't know if the word is there. I don't really care. I want to make a correction, sort of, I guess. Last episode, something was wrong with the podcast file. I don't know what happened. It has since been fixed, but if you were listening and you couldn't hear the NFC East predictions, it was just cut out, I don't know how that happened. I have no idea. I have a lot of moving parts. I did the math. I put out 38 videos when it's all said and done this week, 5 podcasts. I got a call at 4 a.m. this morning. I'm like, oh, what's going on? And I found out it was a problem. I got up immediately. I fixed it. I did not go back to bed, by the way. It is now, it's 7:30 p.m. The same day. It's been a long day for me. I guess as I say that now, I just realized I forgot to post the Patreon, write-ins for next week, so I got to do that tomorrow morning, Saturday morning now. If you're a Patreon user, I apologize. I was really busy trying to get this done and trying to keep up with the preseason, and Monday we'll talk about the preseason games that are happening throughout the weekend, kind of do a recap of preseason week 1. Apparently also, by the way, the other day, I called the Baltimore receiver Zay Jones. Zay Jones is a real receiver. He plays for Jacksonville. Wrong, Zay is a first name, I guess that's uncommon. Zay Flowers, Zay Jones, got him confused somehow. I didn't realize I said the wrong last name, but it happens. I swear, I'm doing my best. It's been a lot this week. I find this job difficult. I'm not going to lie, right? Putting out all these podcasts, making clips, preparing all this stuff, lots and lots of writing. I love it. It's also a week like this week, doing 5 episodes, predictions the entire week. Not a lot of heavy news coverage. It's a busy one. And so I hope you've enjoyed it. I really enjoy this process. I think it's foundational and really important to kind of start having conversations about where teams stand right now so we can compare that throughout the year. Who's a surprise, who's not. And then I'm really excited to update my predictions. If you don't know how I do predictions, I want to be clear for anyone who somehow doesn't know. And it's a new process for me this year. Last year and years past, I just do predictions, I put them out, and I stand by them all year. And this year, I wanted to do a better job of listening to feedback and giving myself room to kind of correct the record. If I'm like, you know what? Now that I've sat on it for 2 weeks, I think the, prediction for the 49ers might be wrong, or Jacksonville, or whatever. And what I do is I go through every single team, and I research them a lot. It's a lot of time. It's an hour. I guess if you do the math of an hour per team, that's 32 hours of research, and I do way more than an hour of research per NFL team. So I get deep in the weeds trying to get to know these football teams, and then what I do, I print out the NFL schedule, and I go through all 272 games. It is a lot of decision-making. And because I think because I know the teams pretty well, I can make, very thoughtful and well thought through decisions on who wins and who loses. And then at the end, I go and count up every team's record. And sometimes as you start counting, you're like, oh my goodness, this team is way worse or way better than I thought. And it's surprising even to me, but I trust the process. I go through it all. And this is the end of round 1 today. In September, I have already decided I can't do 4 more episodes going through every NFL team. I'm just not emotionally, that's a lot of work I don't want to do. But what we're going to do in the first week of September is go through. I'm going to probably call that episode Fixing My Predictions, where I go through and it'll be predictions round 2 where I make corrections and I say, you know what? I feel differently about this team or that team. Tell you what, I think I'm going to take a win away from the Dallas Cowboys already. Things like that where I listen to feedback. I sat on it for like half a month and now I feel, I guess that's 2-3 weeks. And now I want to make a couple changes and make a final prediction. So this is round 1. Round 2 will be in September. I want to invite feedback. If you don't agree with something I say today, tell me why. Tell me why I undervalued your favorite team. Usually it's I didn't give their favorite team enough wins. It's very, very rare. It happens sometimes. It happened a couple of times the other week where people are like, oh, you think our team is better than we do. You're crazy. But it's very rare that an NFL fan will write in angry you gave their team too many wins. It's usually like, hey, we did this last year. We added this player. Now we're 4 wins better. And it's like, well, I don't know. But what I want to do is I come with humility. Here's what I think. I want you to tell me what you think. I like hearing from you guys. I like hearing what you guys think I am wrong about. So I can consider it. I really take it into heart. I try to do all the listening, and then we'll do round 2 of predictions in early September. Let's be clear, first week of September, because September 7th, I believe, football starts. We don't have a lot of time in early September. So let's jump in. We'll start with the NFC South. The big looming question for the New Orleans Saints is about their starting quarterback, Derek Carr. How confident should you be in Derek Carr? He's done some really great stuff during his NFL career. I like Derek Carr a lot. Great guy. Some big games in the past. He's had some cool moments that I really have enjoyed watching. However, the new leadership in Las Vegas basically worked really hard to get rid of him as quickly as they could. What's that about? There's a story there. Why did the Raiders get rid of Derek Carr? Is it because the Raiders front office is full of idiots that don't know what they're doing? I'm not going to put it past them. That's very possible. Or maybe Derek Carr just isn't that good. I'm not sure. Saints fans are hoping that Derek Carr is really good. Raiders fans probably... I don't think any Raiders fan hates Derek Carr. I think they feel actually widely bad for them. But they're hoping that their front office isn't full of idiots. So we'll see. One thing is very, very clear, though. When you look at New Orleans, there's a lot of talent on this football team. They've got a very good defense. It was a top 10 defense last year. They've got a really talented young receiver, Chris Olave. Their running back... Alvin Kamara is awesome. He can catch passes out of the backfield. He can make a lot of runs upfield between the tackles and outside the tackles. Unfortunately, Alvin Kamara has a 3-game suspension for a fight he got into outside of a Vegas nightclub. That's not great. However, the Saints are really deep at running back. They have Jamal Williams behind Alvin Kamara. It sounds like they could bring in Kareem Hunt. It's kind of come down to Minnesota or New Orleans for Kareem Hunt. And they've got this receiver, Michael Thomas, who... I saw this horrible meme that said Damar Hamlin died and came back before Michael Thomas did. That's not exactly true. No, we love the Damar Hamlin story. It's glad he's back on a football field. I'm glad he's alive, breathing. That was a horrifying moment last year. However, we haven't seen Michael Thomas do much of anything since Drew Brees retired. And literally, he's only played in 10 games in 3 years. It's not good. However, if Michael Thomas returns to form and plays at a high level, that would be amazing. That's a huge deal because in 2019, last time he basically did anything, he did quite a bit. He dominated. He led the league in receiving and catches. He had 149 catches that year. That's the most catches in NFL history for any receiver. He had over 1,700 yards. I believe 1,725 yards, I believe is the exact number, but I know it's over 1,700 for Michael Thomas in 2019. He dominated, but it's been a while. He's 30 years old now. He hasn't done much in 3 years. Again, 10 games in 3 years. However, I have a theory here that since Drew Brees retired, he's kind of been waiting for New Orleans to get a real quarterback. We've seen him take a lot of time out, kind of go out of his way to take care of injuries and kind of really been easing himself back from injuries here and there. And I wonder if it's just he doesn't want to play with Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill. He wants to really play with a high-level quarterback again. Maybe Michael Thomas, I don't know. It's all conspiracy theory, but maybe he looks at Derek Carr and says, that's a guy who can get me the football at a high level. I'm coming back with everything I have. We'll see, but I'm really interested to see what Michael Thomas can bring to the table this year. Now, I am a bit skeptical of the pass rush in New Orleans. I hope I'm wrong. Cameron Jordan, they just gave him a new contract. They really like him. He is 34 years old, and that's a really physical position he plays up front. I am curious what rookie defensive end, second-round pick Isaiah Foskey can do. We'll see. He's not currently viewed as a starter, but I'd like to see him maybe eventually become one. I'm also interested in what first-round pick defensive tackle Brian Bresee does this year. They are really trying to improve their defensive line. They put two top picks into that. And I want to see if the Saints can get after the quarterback this year a little better than they have in years past, which is really cool. They've had a great defense in spite of the fact that they haven't gotten after the quarterback at a high level. They've got a really good stud corner, Marshawn Lattimore. They've got two good safeties, Tyrann Mathieu and Marcus May. I like what the Saints are doing on defense. They've also got a really fun tight end group. They've got Juwan Johnson, their number one guy. They brought in Foster Moreau, a guy who played with Derek Carr a lot in the Raiders. They brought back Jimmy Graham. I didn't know Jimmy Graham was literally even capable of playing football anymore. Last I heard, he was riding a bike in Miami, got hit by a car. I literally didn't realize he was even still a guy considered in the league to any level. I don't know how well Jimmy Graham can run anymore, not just because he's injured, but because he's literally old. However, here's why I think the Saints brought back Jimmy Graham. He's a potential red zone threat. I mean, he still can go get the football. Don't ask him to run 40 yards, but in the goal line situation, goal to go in the red zone, he can post up and go grab a rebound, and that's what he might be asked to do a lot this year. I thought he did a good job in Chicago last time he played doing exactly that. Now, Taysom Hill is technically listed as a tight end, so I'm going to talk about him here. However, Taysom Hill, he's a quarterback, a running back, a receiver, a tight end. He's whatever you want him to be. He's the X factor. He plays all over the field, and I think he's going to add an interesting dimension to this offense where, gosh, I mean, he keeps you honest. You throw a screen pass to Taysom Hill, he could end up turning it into a deep double pass downfield. So he does a lot of stuff. He's capable of throwing, running. He's a great athlete. I like watching Taysom Hill. I'm curious how they use him this year. I like how they've used him in the past. He's, again, the word is X factor. He does everything. The offensive line in New Orleans is kind of middle of the road in the NFL. I am curious to see how left tackle Trevor Penning does. He was a first-round pick last year in 2022. He started one game at left tackle last year. He's got to prove himself, but there's talent there. I'm just not sure. Just because you're a first-round pick doesn't mean you're a good player. We see that often. Look at, what's Marcus Davenport, former first-round pick in New Orleans, was supposed to be this great defensive end. He never quite turned into what I was hoping he would be. I don't know if Trevor Penning's going to either, but we'll see. He's got potential to be a good left tackle in New Orleans. And the Saints have some really good players. On paper, they're the best team in the NFC South. They got to win their division. I mean, they didn't give Derek Carr a $150 million contract to lose the division to Atlanta or Carolina. The pressure's on. And frankly, I think given the level of talent in New Orleans, with a good defense, a decent offensive line, some good receiver talent, a deep running back room, hopefully a good quarterback, Derek Carr. I mean, if they don't win their division, there's a problem in New Orleans. The pressure's on. It's their division to lose, in my opinion. Now, they are going to be threatened. I think, candidly, between you and me, Tampa's at the bottom of the division, but even they, if Baker Mayfield's really good and surprises people, this division's up for grabs. I mean, Atlanta's going to be better than I think people realize. Carolina looks talented. I think any team in this division could win, but right now, in my opinion, it's New Orleans' division to lose. I have the Saints going 10-7 this year, winning their division, winning the NFC South. I am nervous about Carolina and Atlanta. Now, I don't expect New Orleans to make a deep playoff run. It's year one with Derek Carr. We still got a lot to see from Derek Carr. Can he prove himself? Can he even make a deep playoff run? I'm not sure. But right now, I have the New Orleans Saints at 10-7, making the playoffs, winning their division. And if they don't do that, again, it's a problem because there's so much talent here. For years, we've been saying, ever since Drew Brees retired, well, this team, they're good. All they need is a quarterback. Well, they have their quarterback. Now it's time to see what Derek Carr can do. And I like this position because Derek Carr is a player I've rooted for a long time. I really felt bad for him the way things went down in Vegas with, he had one of his teammates go to jail. He had John Gruden, his coach, get fired. The system they had, the staff they had imploded. They get this new coach who doesn't really like him, gets rid of him. I felt bad for Derek Carr. I think for years he wasn't properly supported. Then finally he got stuff going. The rug got pulled out from under him. I am hoping to see Derek Carr find a home in New Orleans, do really well, win their division. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but right now, again, I've got the New Orleans Saints going 10-7. We'll see what happens. The Carolina Panthers have done a lot. I really like what the Carolina Panthers are doing. The Carolina Panthers have done a lot to support their young quarterback, Bryce Young. He's the number 1 overall pick in last year's draft. I guess in this year's draft, the 2023 draft, he's a rookie, number 1 overall pick. There's high expectations there, and I cannot wait to watch Bryce Young. I love this young quarterback. The new head coach in Carolina is Frank Reich, who is a guy that he got fired in Indy, although I would argue had a rough deal with an owner that's kind of kooky, and they had a new quarterback every year. Like, Frank Reich went into Indy thinking that Andrew Luck was going to be his quarterback, and then that really didn't happen. He retired early. And I think everything that went down in Indy with Frank Reich, they weren't a good team at the end. It really kind of fell off the wagon, but my perspective is I believe Frank Reich learned a lot. You become a better coach or person or whatever by going through difficult things and kind of trial by fire and learning tough stuff in those moments. And I think Frank Reich became a better coach for everything he went through in Indy. He's a former NFL quarterback who was the Eagles' offensive coordinator when Nick Foles and the Eagles won a Super Bowl a couple years ago. This is a really good offensive coach that knows the quarterback position very well, and I think is going to pair very, very well with Bryce Young. They've got a pretty solid offensive line in Carolina, and one that's going to benefit from the ability of Bryce Young to run around and extend plays that, they're not a great offensive line, but they're a good enough offensive line, especially when you consider the fact that Bryce Young can run around and make people miss in the backfield and keep plays alive. Another thing going for Bryce Young is that they have brought in Andy Dalton as their backup quarterback. He's a guy who started a lot of games as a starting quarterback in Cincinnati. I thought he did pretty well in New Orleans last year. Friend of the show, Marcus Whitman, absolutely loves Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton is a perfect veteran quarterback to come in and mentor him. They've got Josh McCown on their staff, Frank Reich, Andy Dalton. There was a lot of experience playing games in the NFL at the quarterback position in Carolina. A lot of quarterback brains there to help Bryce Young develop. It's a pretty cool situation they've got going on in Carolina. They brought in a running back, Miles Sanders from Philadelphia. They added 2 receivers. They brought in Adam Thielen from Minnesota, a guy who, Adam Thielen is aging. I mean, there's a reason why Minnesota replaced him with Jordan Addison in the draft. But I think he still can do some good stuff. They brought in DJ Chark. He's a guy who, DJ Chark has really struggled to stay healthy throughout his career, but it's not a terrible receiver duo, Adam Thielen and DJ Chark. It's got a limited long-term shelf life because, again, Adam Thielen's getting older. Can DJ Chark stay healthy? I'm not sure of either thing, but on face value right now, that's a decent wide receiver duo for a young quarterback in his first year in the NFL. They also signed a veteran tight end, Hayden Hurst, out of Cincinnati. I like that. And I really, really think that people don't understand. The owner, David Tepper, gets a lot of flack. I really, really like David Tepper, the Carolina Panthers owner. He's not afraid to spend money and try to win that way. He will spend money and do whatever it takes to try to win football games. He spent a lot of money to get Frank Reich, the coaching staff he wanted. Take a listen to some of the coaches they've got in Carolina. They hired Dom Capers, D'Angelo Hall, Josh McCown, Deuce Staley. That's a lot of guys who have a ton of experience and know the game really, really well. And the big hire they made in Carolina, they hired Ejiro Evero. He was let's be honest. The Denver Broncos were a disaster last year. However, somehow in the middle of all that, the bright spot in Denver was their defense and their defensive coordinator who got them to, despite everything going on, the disaster with Russell Wilson, the head coach was a failure. He had the Denver Broncos as a top 10 defense last year. To me, that's really cool and impressive and speaks to not only his ability as a coach, but his ability to handle a lot of nonsense going on. People don't understand how difficult that is to, when your offense isn't giving you any support and your franchise appears to be imploding, to still have your defense perform at a high level is really impressive to me. And they've got a solid group on defense. They've got pass rusher Brian Burns. He's awesome. I think all across the board, they've got a bit of an underrated defensive line that's going to be, teams like New Orleans are supposed to be good to win the division. Good luck against Carolina. They're going to really challenge you and make it difficult. They added Justin Houston to help their pass rush. They've got J.C. Horn, a stud corner. They signed safety Von Bell. They're kind of weirdly loaded at corner, actually. They've got, D'Angelo Hall is their guy working with these cornerbacks. And some of their backups include Jeremy Chin, who's a really good stud. C.J. Henderson is a former first-round pick who is a backup but has a lot of potential. It's pretty interesting what they got going on in Carolina, and I think their coaching staff, man, is just incredible. The people they've brought in, think about this again. Here's who's helping Bryce Young in the quarterback group. Frank Reich, former NFL quarterback, did a lot of incredible stuff, long-time NFL coach. Josh McCown, longtime NFL quarterback, and then the backup quarterback is Andy Dalton. Think of how much experience and years of NFL quarterbacking are in Carolina helping him. It's really cool. It's not often you get a young quarterback with that many quarterbacks or former quarterbacks in the building helping him, and I just love what they're doing, man. Now, I'm interested to see how rookie second round receiver, he's a rookie, but Jonathan Mingo is going to be interesting to me. I think he could develop into a starter or contribute at a high level. Receiver Laviska Shenault could also contribute. Carolina, honestly, to me, has enough talent to win their division. I know that's a tough ask for a rookie quarterback and a new head coach, and they could start slow, which is why I don't have them winning their division in my predictions. I have Carolina going 9-8, but I feel really, really good about where things are going with them, and I'm just not sure how long it's going to take Bryce Young to settle in and start playing at a high level, but I think once he clicks, it's going to be awesome. And I really, really, really believe in him. If he's good immediately week 1, then the 9-8 record I've predicted is too low, quite frankly. I think they're a team capable of a lot more. It's just how quickly does it take for Bryce Young to settle in and start playing well. But I think it's going to be really interesting. Carolina could possibly win that division. And if Derek Carr gets hurt, this is the next team up, in my opinion. It's going to be a bloodbath. I really think the NFC South is really, really even. I mean, there's a lot of... These teams are all going to be neck and neck. They were last year. They're going to be again this year. But I think there's a small chance Carolina could win their division. And Carolina and Seattle are two teams that I think they're really interesting. They're young. They're talented. Everyone talks about the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Jaguars are a young, talented team heading in a good direction. But Carolina's got a lot of potential. And regardless of what happens this year, I truly believe when the year is over and Carolina Panthers fans talk to each other and look in the mirror, I think they're going to feel really good about the future in Carolina. I like Bryce Young. I like the coaching staff. I like a lot of their young players they're developing. I think the future is really, really bright in Carolina, and I love what they're doing and the way they're supporting their young quarterback, Bryce Young. All right, I cannot wait to watch the Atlanta Falcons this fall. They've got an unproven quarterback, Desmond Ridder. That right off the bat to me is like, ding, 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 interesting. Can't wait to see this unproven quarterback. What can Desmond Ridder do? I don't know. But also on top of that, their offense is so fascinating. They've got these two big receiving threats, Drake London at receiver, Kyle Pitts at tight end, guys who are big and physical and can go get the ball. You've got three running backs, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, and Cordarrelle Patterson. Bijan Robinson and Cordarrelle Patterson can literally line up anywhere on the field, but mostly they're going to line up at running back or receiver. And I guess I don't know where else they would line up. I don't imagine, Bijan Robinson playing any quarterback this year. Although, hey, I'm all for it. If they want to put a wildcat setup with Bijan Robinson and Cordarrelle Patterson next to each other, taking direct snaps, I am all for that. That sounds amazing to me. It's really a shame Bijan Robinson can't throw the ball because him throwing would be so interesting. I mean, throwing the ball deep to like Drake London, throwing jump balls, that'd be awesome. Atlanta's got a really good offensive line, which is great for their young quarterback, Desmond Ridder. I think that as a young quarterback, this system is probably going to be close to perfect for any young guy who, I don't know what the ceiling is for Desmond Ridder. I think he's safe. I think he takes care of the football. He's accurate. He's just not super talented, right? He's never going to look like Patrick Mahomes and make diving throws or throw back across the field or launch a throw into a really tight window, 60 yards downfield. Desmond Ridder is, I think, physically limited. However, he's a good decision maker. He's accurate. And having a team where they've got this unique old school offense where they're built around running the football. You don't see that a lot in today's NFL. Having a great running game, having a great offensive line, having two receivers that are possession receivers who can go snatch the ball if you're a little bit inaccurate. All of these things are really going to help Desmond Ridder. Now, I feel good about him because they're not going to ask him to do too much. I think the minute they're down by a lot or the minute if anything happens, I mean, gosh, in moments last year where Atlanta was down, they still ran the football. That's their offense. They're not going to be able to make big comebacks and stuff. I just don't expect that from them. But I just find their offense so fascinating. And then the upside is, hey, what if Desmond Ritter's better than we think? I don't know that he's physically very good, but we've seen Dak Prescott do big stuff. And Dak Prescott physically isn't the most gifted quarterback either. Desmond Ridder can run the zone read. He's safe. He's somewhere, I think, around what Alex Smith did, the high-end version of Alex Smith. The good years in Kansas City, is maybe what Desmond Ridder can become. That's not a bad quarterback. And so I just find the Falcons offense really, really fascinating. Now, Atlanta made a lot of moves to improve their football team this offseason. They added a lot of players. Some talented, some are questionable, but we'll see what happens. I don't want to write all of them off simply because, or I don't want to immediately assume they're all better just because they're new. But here are the players that Atlanta added, mostly on defense to try to fix their defense. But, they added talent everywhere. They traded for corner Jeff Okudah. Jeff Okudah got hurt early in camp, but he will be back early in the year. They added safety Jesse Bates from Cincinnati. They added a defensive tackle, David Onyemata, and a defensive end, Calais Campbell. They traded for tight end Jonnu Smith. That's a guy who reconnected with Arthur Smith after working with him years ago in Tennessee. They added 2 linebackers, Caden Ellis and Bud Dupree. Atlanta made a lot of moves this offseason trying to improve their football team. And I love that. I love a team aggressively spending money, bringing guys in, trying to make a change. What's that saying that, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? I really like that Atlanta said, we're going to shake things up. We're going to bring in different players. We're going to make changes here and there. I'm not sure they're all going to work. I think one question in Atlanta is, can they get pressure on opposing quarterbacks? I'm not sure, but they're definitely trying. They're trying to improve their defensive line, and the potential on their defensive line, and really on both sides of the football, their offensive line and their defensive line have potential to be really good. And if they are, that's a game changer. Now, I have Atlanta going 8-9 this year, falling just behind New Orleans and Carolina. Just because you add new players doesn't guarantee they're going to be good or the right move. I think there's a lot of question marks. How good is Desmond Ridder? How much does it matter given the run-first offense? Maybe it doesn't matter how good Desmond Ridder is. Maybe they don't ask him to do very much and they win anyway. However, I want to be clear about something. It feels like there's such a wide range of possibilities for Atlanta. If their offensive and defensive line are as good as their potential is, they're going to be tough to beat because they're just going to stay in football games. They're going to run the ball well. They're going to stop the run. And if they can get pressure on opposing quarterbacks, that's a big deal. The way you beat quarterbacks is making them uncomfortable. And so I want to be honest here. 8-9 is a really conservative prediction for Atlanta. I'm really excited to watch this team because it feels like a science experiment. What's going to happen with all these running backs and all these multiple players who can kind of play everywhere? To me, the NFC South is up for grabs. I have Atlanta going 8-9, but 8 wins could very easily become 9 or 10. And I think a 10-win season will win the NFC South this fall. So Atlanta's going to be right in the mix. They are a team that has a shot to win the division. I have them at 8-9, coming up third behind New Orleans and Carolina. But, man, a thing goes right here or there, a small decision there, a drop pass here, a missed field goal there, and they win their division. These 3 teams are really, really neck and neck. And just because I have Atlanta coming up 8-9 in my predictions doesn't mean, I just think this division is going to be really close, and I give Atlanta a fair shot. I've seen Derek Carr a lot. I know how much talent is there. I've seen Bryce Young play a lot. I really believe in him. I don't know what to make of Desmond Ridder. I'm not quite sure what to expect from this offense. The defensive line is a question mark that has potential, but I'm not sure. So the unknowns made me nervous about predicting Atlanta to win their division, but they certainly have a shot. And again, I think the word is science experiment. I can't wait to see what happens in Atlanta. I've given them, I hopefully a fair shot here, and I really, really can't wait to watch this football team this fall. Now, we got to talk about Tampa. I don't know. I'm really fascinated by Tampa. I like Baker Mayfield. I like what they got going on. But to me, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in a weird spot as a franchise. You've got a lot of talent left over from that Super Bowl win in 2020. But everybody's aging. And I think it's very possible that If you're going to have a Super Bowl win ever again in Tampa, you probably got to rebuild and restart over. It's not even clear right now if Baker Mayfield's going to be the starting quarterback in Tampa. I don't know why, but they keep saying it's going to be Baker or Kyle Trask. I don't know if that's like a college strategy where they're trying to wait till the last minute to announce the starting quarterback. It's bizarre to me. I can't imagine a reality where Kyle Trask beats out Baker Mayfield, but I don't know. I mean, Baker Mayfield's been such a roller coaster to watch his career. Starting quarterback wins a playoff game in Cleveland, then kind of falls off. Goes to Carolina, does nothing. Goes to the Rams and does a good job for like a couple of games. I mean, Baker Mayfield's a wild card here. I have no idea what to expect from him, and I'm not going to lie to you, pretend I do. It's just could go a myriad of different directions. Now, there is some really talented guys in Tampa. They've got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin at receiver. They've also got Russell Gage. They've got Tristan Wirfs, who was a stud right tackle, moving over to left tackle. I can't imagine he's suddenly going to stop being a good tackle in the NFL. I know it's a little bit different on the left side than the right side, but I think Tristan Wirfs is going to make that move really well and play at a high level. You got Vita Vea at defensive tackle. Got a good linebacker core. Shaq Barrett, Levante David, Devin White. A good secondary corners are Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis. Got Antoine Winfield Jr. at safety. This offensive line in Tampa only has 2 guys left from that Super Bowl win, but they're still solid in my opinion. You've got Tristan Wirfs at left tackle and center Ryan Jensen. Yes, those are the 2 guys left over from that Super Bowl, but they've got a second-year lineman, Luke Goedeke, who is switching over to right tackle. Luke Goedeke, I think is how you actually say that. Good for him. They've got a second-round pick, Cody Mock, who is expected to start at right guard. I love this guy, Cody Mock. He's got a huge personality. He's missing his 2 front teeth. Played at North Dakota State. Just an awesome guy. Like, go watch interviews of Cody Mock, by the way. Just full of fun and joy and personality. The kind of guy I'd like to get a beer with and hang out with in real life. They got a new left guard, Matt Filer, coming over from Pittsburgh. I don't think it's a terrible offensive line. And again, I'm just not sure what to expect from Baker Mayfield, their starting quarterback. It's very surprising to me that he's not been named the clear starting quarterback over Kyle Trask. It's not like Kyle Trask, who he did play at Florida years ago, he's not very physically gifted, in my opinion. Kyle Trask isn't playing in an offense he knows better than Baker Mayfield. It's not like they kept the same system. They hired a new offensive coordinator, Dave Canales. So I don't know how it's possible Kyle Trask is competing with Baker Mayfield. Maybe he's better than I anticipated. I'm not sure. But I have Tampa going 6-11 this fall. I'm not really confident in this football team. And if 6-11 is what happens, I think it's very likely they will fire their head coach, Todd Bowles, a guy who, he's a good defensive coach. He'll land on his feet, probably get a defensive coordinator job somewhere. Maybe next offseason, what could happen in Tampa is they make a trade for Kyler Murray, the quarterback in Arizona. Maybe they bring in Kyler Murray. They hire an offensive head coach. I mean, I don't know what the future looks like in Tampa. But we also have to acknowledge, I have them at 6-11. I'm not confident in them because I just don't know what to make of Baker Mayfield. And again, they got this aging football team with questions on the offensive line. However, the NFC South is up for grabs. I really think that it's a tight race between New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina. I'm really curious if Tampa can insert themselves into that competition. And you have to acknowledge, if Baker Mayfield can play at a high level, this is the very best situation he's probably ever going to find himself in the NFL. Throwing to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, a solid offensive line, a capable defense. I mean, it's very possible Baker Mayfield is exactly what Tampa needs and becomes their franchise quarterback. I want to open up that possibility. I'm not real confident in that. Partially because, again, why is it taking him so long to win the starting quarterback job? That makes no sense to me. But again, Baker's a wild card here. If Baker's great, Tampa could make some noise and maybe easily win their division. I mean, if Baker does really well, there's a lot of potential here. He also plays his former team Carolina twice. That's a fun, interesting wrinkle. So I have an open mind here. I have Tampa going 6-11. I'm not real confident in them, but I want to leave the door open for, you know what? Baker could work out. This is I know, kind of wishy-washy, but this division, the NFC South, is just it's a weird division that I feel like anyone could win. If things go right for any team here, one of them is going to come out on top, and I think it's actually all really neck and neck. One guy worth noting before we move on from Tampa is that I'm really interested in Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. He's a pass rusher, edge defender, whatever you want to call him. He was a former first-round pick In the first 2 years of his career, he had 8 sacks. And if Joe Tryon Shoyinka, that name is so difficult. I don't know. Joe Tryon Shoyinka. He played at Washington. He's awesome. If he had a breakout year this year, him and Shaq Barrett could be a really interesting dynamic duo. He's physically gifted, Tryon Shoyinka, but he's got to play at a high level. I've kind of been waiting for this guy to pop. It hasn't really happened. I've got an open mind. He's going into year 3. Again, I think there's potential here where he could be really good. We'll see what happens, but that's a guy that, if he turns out to be great, has a really good third year in the NFL, this defense could be pretty good, get a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, and maybe make guys like Derek Carr really, really struggle. So what do you think is going to happen to Baker Mayfield? I'm not sure, man. He hasn't given me reason to believe in him. So I'd like to see Baker be great. I like him as a person. I think he's fun. I think there's a chance here that he's exactly the leader and motivating force they need in Tampa, but I'm also just not willing to bet on the guy at all. Let's now shift to the AFC South. Last year, the Jacksonville Jaguars won their division, and they won a playoff game, but it didn't look easy. They needed a very stressful last-minute win. They won by 4 points, I believe 20-16 against Tennessee, Week 18. They had, the Titans had Josh Dobbs at quarterback, a backup quarterback. They barely won their division, like by a little thin margin. Jacksonville did not make that look easy. Then, in their playoff game, they were down 27-0. They came back and won, but it's like, man, this team just could not make it look easy at all last year. And I want to ask, what does it look like for the Jaguars to build off of last year? I would argue, even if this year has the same result as last year, they win their division, they go to a playoff game, maybe they win a playoff game. If they can do the same thing they did last year, but make it look less ugly, make it maybe a bit easier, less of a feeling like they're just barely making it happen, but they do it in a more dominating way, or they do it more, how do I even say this? Just without this last minute crazy stuff. They're like, oh, they got that, but barely. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to see Jacksonville. We heard Trevor Lawrence talk about this. He said, this is the new standard. Is it? Is Jacksonville going to be a perennial playoff team for years to come? We'll find out. I love the Jaguars coach and quarterback. That's a big deal. They've got Doug Peterson at coach. Quarterback is Trevor Lawrence. They've got the 2 hardest things to find in the NFL, the coach and quarterback. They've got that right, and that's a big deal. That is going to take them a long way. Now, it's a young football team. They've got a lot of potential in Jacksonville, but these guys just got to keep developing. They've got linebacker Josh Allen, he's 26. Linebacker Devin Lloyd, he's 24. Safety Andre Sisco's 23. Corner Tyson Campbell, he's 23. The left tackle Walker Little, he's 24. I mean, this is a young football team. Now, you have to acknowledge that their normal left tackle, Cam Robinson, he's suspended for the first 4 games of the year. That means Walker Little's going to play left tackle. And then that also means that rookie first-round pick Anton Harrison is going to be a week 1 starter at right tackle. Don't love that. He's going to be thrown into the fire early. However, I do think that if Jacksonville's, if Anton Harrison, their rookie right tackle, struggles early on, in the first 4 games, they're playing Indy, Kansas City, Houston, and Atlanta. They could finish that stretch of games 3-1 in Jacksonville. And thankfully, they don't play Pittsburgh or the 49ers or Cleveland early in the year. So I think they can survive losing Cam Robinson for the first 4 games of the year. Now, this offseason, they added their offensive tackle, Juwan Taylor, went to Kansas City. That's a big loss. Their edge defender, Arden Key, went to Tennessee. Don't love that. That's not awesome. I almost said they added Juwan Taylor. No, Juwan Taylor left, and that's not great. It's going to really help Kansas City. It's not going to help Jacksonville. They are going to get receiver Calvin Ridley back. He was suspended all of last year for gambling. I think Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley is going to be a really, really fun dynamic duo to watch play together. They've got some awesome weapons for Trevor Lawrence to throw to. He's got Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, plus a tight end, Evan Ingram. I love that. I love what they got going on as far as offensive weapons for him to throw to in Jacksonville. Now, the bad news, on top of having Cam Robinson missing, they lost Juwan Taylor. Ben Bartch is hurt, and so he's got a knee injury. He's on the IR. That's scary for their offensive line. I think that, I'm not going to lie to you, I think the biggest question in Jacksonville is their offensive line. Now, thankfully, their division isn't very good. Houston, Indy, Tennessee, there's a lot of questionable rosters I just named, but I think the offensive line could be a problem when they're playing better football teams like the 49ers, like Cleveland, like Cincinnati, where, especially the Cleveland, the 49ers, those kind of teams. I mean, Pittsburgh, TJ Watt. So the offensive line concerns me in Jacksonville. I know they've got this awesome receiver. It's going to be flashy. They got talent everywhere. But Trevor Lawrence needs a good offensive line, and I am not real confident in them. Now, last year's number 1 overall pick, Travon Walker, needs to play at a higher level. He had 3.5 sacks last year in only 15 games. He missed 2 games last year. I want to see more from Travon Walker, though. Last year, he was young. He was raw. I can excuse it. They sold him. They drafted Travon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson, who was drafted number 2 overall by Detroit. And the way they sold that was, well, he's physically a more gifted athlete. However, Aiden Hutchinson had 9.5 sacks and looked really good last year. Travon Walker didn't look that great, and we're kind of waiting to see. Is he going to be a bust? I don't know, but if he's not, he's got to get going this year. I'm hoping that works out. That's a young player they got to hit on. Ultimately, I apologize in advance. I actually have the Jaguars going 7-10 this year. I think they're a team that's going to win their division. I know that's crazy. I think it speaks to how bad their division is going to be this year. And that could be too low. 7 wins feels really low. I don't feel great about that. But when you look around the AFC, there's only so many wins to go around. And the AFC is absolutely loaded with really good football teams. I think Cleveland's going to be really good. Baltimore's better. Cincinnati's good. The Jets are better. I mean, the AFC is loaded with the most talented teams in football. I think that the Jaguars are a team that, if they were in the NFC, might fare a little bit better, but they're probably going to be the team in the playoffs with the worst record. I feel strongly that no matter what happens with the Jaguars' record, they are going to win their division. They're going to win that division. I feel really strongly about that. Their offensive line concerns me. No Ben Barch. Cam Robinson's out for 4 games. There's a lot of unproven guys in Jacksonville. I like the Jaguars, though. I worry that predicting them to go 7-10 makes me sound like a hater. I don't believe in them. No. Love their coach. Love their quarterback. Love their young players. It's because they've got just teams around them everywhere that are really, really great. And I think this year is all about building and developing towards next year for Jacksonville. They're young. They're growing. I think in the next couple of years, while Trevor Lawrence is on a rookie contract in particular, we're going to see a moment where the Jaguars could enter a playoff window, a Super Bowl window, and be a team that is a Super Bowl contender. But they're not there yet. And part of why I have the Jaguars going 7-10, again, it's out of reverence and respect for how good all the other teams in the AFC are. And the Jaguars were a playoff team last year. They got a tough schedule. I think they win their division. I know it sounds crazy. They might win fewer games than last year, but I think they might be a better team this year. It's just that the teams around them are so much better. I mean, adding Aaron Rodgers, adding a great receiving core for Lamar Jackson, adding all these teams in the AFC, I think the AFC got beefier. The Jaguars are a little bit better with a tough schedule, and I have them going 7-10, winning their division, though. And a team that I think they're going to lose a lot of games that are close and really tough. And a 7-10 Jaguars team that wins their division still could win a playoff game. I don't know why you couldn't see a Jaguars team eke out a win the way they did over the Chargers last year. I just, it comes down to really honestly, there's just only so many wins to go around. The AFC is incredibly loaded, and I think that they are in the worst division in football, probably the AFC South. The Jaguars are going to go 7-10, but win their division. The Tennessee Titans are a team that are, I love this line. The Tennessee Titans are a team that are built to win a Super Bowl in the 90s. They are a team that is defensive-led. They've got an offense led by their running game. The Titans quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, is going to be back healthy. That's awesome, I guess. I mean, he missed 5 games last year. Tennessee lost 7 games at the end of last year. They went from 7-3 to 7-10. It's a big loss. But the makeup of this team concerns me. They've got focuses in the wrong stuff. Like, are you building a team around your running back in 2023? It's a passing league. Now, they did add receiver DeAndre Hopkins. He's really good. A big question mark is their number 2 receiver, Treylon Burks. He's a guy who was a former first-round pick last year. Was supposed to replace A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown got traded to Philly. Went off, had an amazing year, made Howie Roseman, the general manager in Philly, look like a genius, and Treylon Burks did next to nothing. He had 33 catches, 1 touchdown, played in only 11 games, had a toe injury. Maybe having DeAndre Hopkins on the roster, by the way, is going to help Treylon Burks. It's going to give him better matchups, and playing against the number 2 corner is going to be good for him. I'm not sure. But regardless of DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry, their running back, the offensive line is a concern in Tennessee. Their right tackle is suspended for 6 games for gambling. Their offensive line was a disaster last year, and it's going to be worse early in the year. It doesn't help, by the way, that in 2020, Isaiah Wilson, the first-round pick, was a massive bust. Didn't even make it through the year. That's a horrible, terrible thing. It makes me feel bad for Titans fans and, frankly, the Titans organization, because they drafted Isaiah Wilson thinking he was going to become a great player to help their offensive line, and it just was a waste of a pick. It's really sad. They did add a left tackle, Andre Dillard. Played against him in high school, by the way. Shout out to Woodinville High School. They beat us. It was sad. But he went to Washington State as a former first-round pick. Andre Dillard lost his job as left tackle in Philly. Got beat out by Jordan Mailata. I don't know that you can really criticize or view Andre Dillard too poorly after losing the job to, Jordan Mailata. That's one of the best left tackles in football. He's amazing. He's incredible. You lost the job fair and square to a guy who's better than you and better than most left tackles in football. It doesn't mean Andre Dillard can't still be a solid left tackle. They're trying to help their offensive line. I like that. They added a rookie first-round pick, Peter Skoronski. Likely he's going to start at left guard. But I'm worried about this offense. One thing that was really telling was that it seemed like the Titans couldn't attract a new offensive coordinator. They couldn't bring anyone from the outside to come be their offensive coordinator. They ended up having to promote Tim Kelly, their former passing game coordinator, to the offensive coordinator position. That was a bit of a warning sign to me. It was like, coaches around the NFL don't want to work in Tennessee. They don't want that offensive line. They don't want to work with Ryan Tannehill. They're concerned about the receiving core. I think adding DeAndre Hopkins was a big deal. We'll see how far that goes. I got concerns about this offense. I'm not going to lie to you. Now, on defense, Jeffrey Simmons is a standout defensive lineman. Arden Key came over from Jacksonville. That's awesome. My favorite player on this entire football team, Tennessee, the Titans, I absolutely love and hate their safety, Kevin Byard. I hate him because as a former quarterback, he's so dang good. He's a student of the game. He makes great plays. He reads quarterbacks' eyes really well. He's just got some high-level interceptions I've watched over the years. I really, really admire and respect Titan safety Kevin Byard. I think he's massively underrated. I think he's a brilliant football player I would not want to play against. But we got to drop the hammer here. I believe the Tennessee Titans are going to go 5-12. I know that's going to be viewed as a bold statement. I know it's going to make a lot of people angry in Tennessee. I apologize, man, but they're going to start really bad. The Titans play week 1 at New Orleans. Week 2, they play the Chargers. Week 3 at Cincinnati. Week 3, they play at Cleveland. And then week 4, they play Cincinnati. So Saints, Chargers, Cleveland, Cincinnati. It is very likely that the Tennessee Titans are going to start the year 0-4. And I worry that if they have a bad start, they're going to get impatient and make a move at quarterback and switch from Ryan Tannehill to Will Levis, who they drafted in the second round, or maybe they'll make a move to go get Malik Willis. I'm not sure. It's a concerning thing. I'm like, this team is already not great. Switching quarterbacks early after a bad start, because I worry that Mike Vrabel is going to have to do something crazy, throw a Hail Mary, make a move here or there to try to keep his job. And I love Mike Vrabel. It's not his fault. Mike Vrabel is a wonderful, wonderful head coach. A guy that, when I worked in HVAC, I had a boss who I really loved. He was a guy that had done it before. He'd been an installer before. One day we were on the job, and my boss came, and we were behind. We're on a hill. Like I'm halfway up a hill trying to dig out a hole to place an AC unit. And he came and helped us. This guy who, it's not his job anymore. He's not an installer. And I thought it was so interesting that he not only came and helped us do this stuff in the hot sun, on a really hot day, on a difficult hill, digging dirt, literally, and then we're like brazing metal, doing all this stuff. It really impressed me that not only did he help us, but he knew how to do it. He's a guy who'd done it before. Players love Mike Vrabel because he's done it before. He relates to you. He's different. He's not some boss that's never done it, never played football before. No. His players love him because he's played in the NFL. He played at a high level. And the best thing about Mike Vrabel is even when the guys he has aren't super talented, he finds a way to get the best out of them. A couple years ago, he went toe-to-toe with Kansas City, and the defense had no right competing with Kansas City. And that was the moment where for the rest of my life, I will always respect Mike Vrabel as a head coach. If Mike Vrabel gets fired, he's going to be hired immediately somewhere else, whether it's defensive coordinator or head coach. I mean, he could find a job anywhere. I'm really convinced of that. However, doesn't mean I think he's going to win this year. The offensive line is a mess. It's scary. It's not great. Do you really trust Ryan Tannehill, their quarterback? Ryan Tannehill, that's the guy you're going to trust to win a lot of games and win the division. I'm not sure. He's getting older. He's coming off an injury with a bad offensive line. And the two best players on offense for Tennessee are Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins. Derrick Henry turns 30 during the year. DeAndre Hopkins is 31. At some point, Derrick Henry's not going to be able to play at his high level. It's going to fall off the wagon. Maybe not this year, but it could be this year. I think it's likely. With a bad offensive line, he's getting older. I'm not confident Derrick Henry's going to be the best running back in the NFL anymore. DeAndre Hopkins, 31, coming off an injury. What's he going to bring to the table? I don't know. When he played last and was healthy, he played great. No, he's not. Sorry. Coming off a suspension. I apologize. That's why he didn't play a lot of games last year. I thought DeAndre Hopkins finished the year really well, but can he get the ball if the quarterback's on his back? Plus, how much does Ryan Tannehill impress you at quarterback? You think Ryan Tannehill is the guy to make DeAndre Hopkins look amazing? It's more likely that DeAndre Hopkins is going to have to make Ryan Tannehill look really good, and I'm not confident in the quarterback. It's a really bad offensive line. Got aging players. To me, this could be the worst offensive line in football. I feel like maybe I'm trying to convince myself why they're going to win 5 games, but it comes back down to, similar to Jacksonville, the AFC is loaded with really good talent. There's only so many wins to go around. The schedule is brutal for the Tennessee Titans, and I hope I'm wrong. I think they're going to start 0-4. You never know what happens after an 0-4 start. Teams fall apart. Maybe they respond and do better. Very unlikely they're going to go from an 0-4 start to making a playoff run. That's just ridiculous. And more than likely, I think it's possible that ownership in Tennessee gets impatient and gets rid of Mike Vrabel. I hope not. I love the guy. I want to see Tennessee steal some wins from the Chargers, the Ravens, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Seattle. That'd be cool, but I don't know that they've got enough talent for Mike Vrabel to work his magic like he's done before and take a underrated team that's not got a lot of talent and help them overachieve. I think that the overachieving this year isn't going to happen. And if Mike Vrabel can win games with this football team, this offensive line, this quarterback, this defense, to me, he'd be coach of the year. I mean, if you think 5-12 is wrong, I want to hear you tell me why. I'm open to criticism. I'm open to you telling me why the Titans are a great football team this year, but I'm not buying it. And I've got major concerns. I love the coach. That's not enough for me to believe in this football team. I have the Titans going 5-12 this year, and they're not winning their division. Now, my prediction for the Indianapolis Colts is based on the assumption that Gardner Minshew is going to be their starting quarterback for most of the year. If their rookie number 4 overall pick, Anthony Richardson, plays, I feel like anything can happen. I mean, he is really, really talented, and he's so talented that he can make a lot of big plays. He can run the zone read at a high level. I think with zone reads and simple RPOs, maybe a limited offense would actually do better than Gardner Minshew running the Colts offense. But the problem is this dilemma. I think if you play Anthony Richardson before he's ready, you risk him developing. You risk him getting, I think, the opportunity of him watching Gardner Minshew run a more complicated system, watching Minshew make mistakes, good or bad, watching all the film, learning from that, sitting behind him for a while is a really important process that could allow Anthony Richardson to grow a lot as a player and as a quarterback. But I also want to acknowledge their owner, Jim Irsay, is a guy that he ran Carson Wentz out of town. He's a very kind of interesting personality who, if the Colts are struggling to win, he could say, hey, we spent a lot of capital on this guy. We got to go draft Anthony Richardson. He's a number 4 overall pick. I've watched him on YouTube at Florida doing crazy stuff. I've watched his highlights. I've watched him in practice. Like, why are we not playing Anthony Richardson? And that could put Anthony Richardson on the field before he's ready to run a more complicated system. I think you sacrifice his development, but it might actually be a better, more effective offense in a weird way. Like his ability to run the football, run the zone read, it might be more simple throwing the football, but he can do stuff Gardner Minshew simply cannot do, and that might throw my predictions completely out of whack. Now, a big problem for Indy will be that we have no idea who their running back is going to be. Their new head coach, Shane Steichen, is great when it comes to run play design. However, their running back Jonathan Taylor is likely to never play for the Colts ever again. I would not blame him at all if he said, "To hell with you guys, I'm never coming back. I don't like you at all." That leaves the Colts with, well, Zach Moss, who's injured and is probably going to come back early in the year, but we'll see. He broke his arm. It is worth noting, I think the system, I really feel good about Anthony Richardson, their draft pick. He's really talented. I think long-term, he fits the offensive system that Shane Steichen's going to run in Indy, their new head coach. I mean, he came over from Philadelphia, was their offensive coordinator last year. If Shane Steichen's offense looks anything like what they did with Jalen Hurts in Philly last year, they got a guy who is bigger, a better runner, and got a bigger arm than Jalen Hurts doing a lot of the same stuff. I mean, there's a lot of potential long-term in Indy. And I love Gardner Minshew, the current starting quarterback, we think, in Indianapolis. But he's babysitting the offense until Anthony Richardson is ready. But again, back to what I was saying. We've got questions at the running back spot. I think their best offensive weapon in Indy is their receiver, Michael Pittman Jr. He's a big physical receiver, can go get jump balls. He's awesome to watch. I'll never forget the catch he had against Utah in college. The best player on defense in Indy is DeForest Buckner up front on their defensive line. By the way, their 2021 first-round pick, Kwity Paye, defensive end, got hurt last year. He's going into year 3. Maybe Kwity Paye takes a big step forward and provides a really big boost to their pass rush. I'm not sure. We will see. Unfortunately for the Colts, in my opinion, the Colts are really good in places that simply don't matter very much. They're great at guard, linebacker, defensive tackle. It's a passing league. I'm worried about their passing game in general. We don't know who their quarterback is really going to be. Anthony Richardson, if he does play, isn't going to be really, really prepared to do a lot of complicated stuff. He's got a huge arm, but he's got to develop. Gardner Minshew is physically really limited. I don't love the receiving core in Indy. I'm worried about their secondary as well. Corner Kenny Moore can only do so much. I like their awesome second-year safety, Rodney Thomas, but they're going to have 2 rookies in the rotation at corner. They're going to have Juju Brents, a second-round pick, and Darius Rush, a fifth-round pick. That combination of a pass rush in Indy that hasn't been great getting after opposing quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are pretty comfortable when you play Indianapolis in the last couple of years. Paired with the fact they've got unproven corners, that's really scary. Look at the look at the schedule Indy plays this year. They play Calvin Ridley and Trevor Lawrence twice. I think they're going to get eaten alive. The Ravens are going to have a really good passing game, I believe, with Lamar Jackson. They invested. They got a new offensive coordinator. They got new receivers. Lamar Jackson's going to be better throwing the football, in my opinion. Playing the Rams and Cooper Kupp. You're playing Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and George Pickens. I am really worried about the Colts' ability to stop other teams throwing the football. I don't think they're going to be able to stop other teams throwing the football. Again, it's a passing league, and when you're playing good receivers and great passing teams with really good offensive lines, that's a disaster recipe for the Indianapolis Colts this year. It makes me cringe. Now, I have the Colts going 4-13 this year. I don't want to hate on them. All that being said, I like their future. I feel good about what's going on. I'm curious how their linebacker, Shaq Leonard's going to return. He got hurt last year, only played in 3 games. I'm really excited about their second-year left tackle, Bernard Raymond. He's a guy who, was really great last year towards the end of the year. And the Colts general manager, Chris Ballard, is fantastic at drafting offensive linemen. There's a guy, Josh Downs, a third-round receiver, going to be a rookie this year out of North Carolina. He's a speedy little slot guy. He's got great hands. He's currently behind Alec Pierce and Isaiah McKenzie on the depth chart right now. I wonder if Josh Downs can become an impact player. I mean, him paired with Michael Pittman Jr., that's an idea I like. But the schedule makes me nervous. They're really good at positions that just aren't important in a passing league, in my opinion. If you're going to be weak at those positions, you can get away with being weak at linebacker. They're great at linebacker. Congratulations. How much is that going to help you win football games? I'm not sure. So again, I've got Indy going 4-13. I love their future. I feel great about Anthony Richardson. They drafted the right guy, in my opinion. I mean, the fact that they got Anthony Richardson playing for Shane Steichen is unbelievable. That's a recipe for success for years to come. I really like where the Colts are headed. I feel better about Anthony Richardson than I do about C.J. Stroud. But this year, he's likely not going to be ready to play at a high level. And I think it's going to be a year of rebuilding with a new coach, quite frankly. I have the Colts going 4-13. I anticipate a lot of anger coming from Colts fans. I don't mean it to be an offensive thing. I don't mean I'm not trying to attack you guys. And I acknowledge that, hey, maybe Anthony Richardson puts a wrench in all that, and he's a wild card that could play at a high level, and you never know. But right now, I'm not real confident in the Colts. I think they've got a lot of room to grow and a lot of things to figure out on their offense and who's their running back, what's going on there. Their secondary concerns me. Their pass rush concerns me. It is worth noting they've got a second-year tight end, Jelani Woods, third-round pick last year, guy who's nowhere near the top of the depth chart right now, but he's an awesome tight end that he's talented. Jelani Woods, I'm curious what he can do. He had 3 touchdowns last year as a rookie. He's 6'7". He's got good hands. I don't know how Shane Steichen wants to use him. I'm not sure if they want to use him, but I think there's a lot of potential there with Jelani Woods. I don't mean to bash on the Colts, but I hope Colts fans can agree. Like your football team is not ready to win a lot of games this year. I think they're going to go 4-13. Maybe they exceed that expectation and go, 6-11. And woo! Did you really you know what I mean? Like if they exceed the expectations of 4-13, they're right in that mix. I mean, I just don't see a lot of wins for the Colts this year. I would like to be proven wrong, but the running back thing really concerns me. This is an offense that's going to run the football heavily, and we don't know who their running back is going to be. Okay. I don't know why you're not just going to pay Jonathan Taylor, make him happy, get him back on the field. I mean, I think that their offense is really built around running the football, and not knowing who your running back is, that's a problem. But we'll see what's going to happen in Indy. I don't feel great about their year, but I feel great about their future. Now, let's talk about Houston. The Houston Texans are not going to be a very good football team this year. However, I think they're going to be really interesting. They've got a rookie quarterback, C.J. Stroud. They've got a new coach, DeMeco Ryans, a former player, and a guy who's a really good defensive coach. I believe eventually, actually, DeMeco Ryans, I don't know he's the coach that's going to win Houston a Super Bowl, but I think what he could do in the next couple of years is get them to a place where they're respectable. They're no longer this disaster that is a perennial loser in the NFL. And I think what's going to happen with DeMeco Ryans is going to do the little things right now. It's going to allow this team to grow as the year goes on. Now, this year in Houston is all about developing their young guys, particularly their young quarterback, C.J. Stroud. They drafted 2 guys in the top 3 picks this year in the draft. They drafted C.J. Stroud number 2. Then they traded back up in the draft to go get Will Anderson, a guy who, you could argue that it's a problem they gave up too much. Now next year, Houston's not going to have a first round pick next year because they traded up to go get Will Anderson. Although I would argue, even if the Houston Texans have a first round pick next year, well, what they did was say, instead of having a top 5 pick this year and a top 5 pick next year, how about we just have 2 top 5 picks this year in the draft? And whatever that draft pick they traded away to Arizona becomes, I don't know. People are really hard on Will Anderson. It's really difficult for him because no matter what he does, he's going to lose. But I didn't see a huge problem with them trading back up, going and get their player now rather than waiting until next year, hoping that a player they like is in the draft in the top 5 next year. Okay, they had a player they really liked. They had their eye on. They went and got him. I don't think that's the worst thing ever for a defensive coach who's in his first year and really likes a player. They've also got some not great pieces around their young quarterback, C.J. Stroud, but they're okay. They've got left tackle Laramie Tunsil. I like him. They added a right guard, Shaq Mason. There's still a lot of question marks on this offensive line. It's not going to be a very good offensive line, although it's better than what Tennessee has. They brought in a tight end, Dalton Schultz from Dallas. They added a receiver, Robert Woods. They've got this third-year receiver, Nico Collins. He's a big dude, 6'4", probably going to eventually be, in time, their number 1 receiver in Houston. They've got a receiver, John Mechie, who's going to play after not playing last year. He was a second-round pick out of Alabama in 2022. He didn't play last year because he was battling leukemia, but he's a cool story, and he was really talented in college at Alabama. They also have a third-round receiver they drafted, rookie Tank Dell. He's interesting. Speedy guy, light, very small, but really quick. Reminds me actually a bit of Darnell Mooney. Now, what you have to acknowledge with Houston this year is that their rookie quarterback, C.J. Stroud, is in a really, really tough spot. In college at Ohio State, pretty much he always had better players. He had great receivers. He had a great offensive line. Other than that Georgia game last year in the college football playoff, he basically didn't have to struggle very much. And it's going to be a new reality for him. I think that of all the rookie quarterbacks, or all the young quarterbacks in the NFL, I look at even Kenny Pickett, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, definitely the rookies with Bryce Young, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. I think C.J. Stroud, of all the young quarterbacks in the first couple of years in the NFL right now, C.J. Stroud is going to have the toughest road ahead of him. It's going to be difficult. He's going to get a lot of criticism. People are going to hate on him, make fun of him. You got to acknowledge that he's walking into a historically really dysfunctional organization, the Houston Texans, who have a weird owner. They've got a situation where they've got two backup quarterbacks, Case Keenum and Davis Mills, who probably both are better and more ready to play in the NFL than C.J. Stroud is. They're going to play C.J. Stroud because he's a top pick and he's got to learn by trial by fire. But Davis Mills is probably better than him. Doesn't mean C.J. Stroud in years to come couldn't eventually be better than Davis Mills, but there's this conspiracy theory that Houston didn't want to draft C.J. Stroud, and the owner made them do it, so then they trade back up to go get Will Anderson. That's why they drafted two players in the top 3 picks. It's very possible. I mean, I think it's possible Davis Mills should have been their quarterback this year. However, that doesn't mean long-term C.J. Stroud couldn't be really good. It just means that he's going to really struggle as a rookie. It's going to be a really rough path. Defensive head coach, a bad offensive line, not a bad receiving core, but not a great receiving core. A team that's going to be down by a lot of points, that's going to be pressing, trying to win football games. I have Houston going 3-14 this year. It's going to be a rough year all around. I think Houston's trying on the offensive line, but it's going to be pretty rough. And what I'm really begging for people watching the Houston Texans this year, please be patient with their young quarterback, C.J. Stroud. There's 3 games that are interesting. They play Indy twice. Indy and Houston both have first-year head coaches, Shane Steichen and DeMeco Ryans. One's on the offensive side of the football, one's on the defensive side of the football. That's a fun matchup. And then they play Houston later in the year, I think week 11. That's also awesome. 2 first-year coaches. Those are chances for the Houston Texans to win this fall. But there's just not a lot of talent in Houston. I hope people are patient with both DeMeco Ryans, their coach, and their quarterback, C.J. Stroud. Give them a fair chance because where they're starting from is just not a very good spot. They've got a bad roster, a bad ownership group. Cal McNair is insane to me. I would not want to work under him at all. I don't feel great about the Houston Texans organization. They've got a lot of things they're fighting against. Good people can go to a bad place and really struggle just because you're swimming uphill or you're swimming upriver or running uphill all day long. And I think that C.J. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans are kind of like they're at the bottom of an escalator trying to run opposite of it. It's going down. They're trying to run up, and they're just going to be fighting it every step of the way. So I'm hoping that people take a deep breath. We saw, at time of recording, we saw him have his preseason debut. It went pretty bad. 3 for 4. Ugly interception. Was it 2 for 4, actually? An ugly interception is what I really remember. Just like, what are you doing? I think it's going to be a lot of moments like that. And I'm just hoping that Texans fans can be patient and try to enjoy the process. I think that by week 18, you're going to see a different C.J. Stroud than week 1. And hopefully it's different because he's better and not injured and on the sideline because the offensive line got him killed. So we'll see. But just be patient because expecting too much from C.J. Stroud, like Bryce Young is going to be awesome. And Anthony Richardson is really talented, but they're in a very different situation than C.J. Stroud is in, which is in a really tough uphill battle. And when you compare the support Bryce Young has to what C.J. Stroud has, it's ridiculous. You're like, this isn't even fair. I mean, he literally has 3 NFL quarterbacks helping him on the coaching staff or as his backup quarterback. So, Bryce Young is in a way better spot than C.J. Stroud. You're going to see them compared all year long, and people are going to talk about, well, Bryce Young is way better than C.J. Stroud. Take a deep breath, relax, and understand that it's going to be a long process for C.J. Stroud to get ready to be a good NFL quarterback. And that's why I have got Houston going 3-14 this year. They're not a great football team. They got a first-year coach, a rookie quarterback who's going to struggle, and it's going to be ugly. And I just hope people don't give up on him and give him a fair shot. All right, let's end the show today with questions from Patreon. If you want to support the show, please do. Go to patreon.com/Zach Schaumler, patreon.com/Zach Schaumler. It's $1 a month. You can donate more if you want to. Please do. It literally pays my rent. but $1 a month gives you access to submit questions to the show on Patreon. I don't guarantee to read your questions on the show. My only guarantee is I look at every single question with my eyeballs. By the way, before we get into Patreon questions, let me just acknowledge, we finished predictions, guys. Oh my gosh, I just kind of rolled right from Houston into the Patreon questions, but my gosh, guys, we did it. I think it's cool. It's worth celebrating. It's late on a Friday night. It's been a really busy week. 5 episodes this week recorded. Anyway, let's jump in. The Raw Prospect Podcast writes in and says, "Hey, Zach, I was having a conversation with my dad the other day on how to improve my sports podcast, and he said something really interesting. He said I'm not bold enough with my takes, and it makes it seem like I'm being fearful of being wrong. In reality, that isn't the case at all. I just think that people who make strong takes on one side or the another fail to point out the nuance in the situation, which is what I try to do. For whatever reason, people definitely do seem to be drawn to people more firmly picking sides. My question is, why do you think people are drawn to hot takes and things of that nature in the sports media? Do you have any interesting theories on it? Thanks for reading this with your eyeballs. I know it's pretty long. His name is Raw Prospect Podcast on Patreon. I was getting ready to say thanks for reading my question, Josh or David, but there's no name. It's Raw. I'm not gonna say thanks, Raw. Like I don't know. I wish I knew his real name so I could call him that. Look. It's not the sports world. It's everything that wants things to be black and white and ignores nuance, and they want strong opinions. Everything is polarized and tribal. It's very sad to me, actually. It seems like people, they don't want empathy. They don't want nuance. They don't want to hear about both sides. They want to hear why their side is right. And that's it, basically. They want to have their beliefs confirmed. And that's in the sports world. That's in everything, really. It's unsettling to me. And it makes me sad because I ethically don't want to be someone who is burying people and having all these hot takes and saying stuff I don't believe. It's not right. And people want things to be plain and simple. They want heroes and villains, and they want their beliefs confirmed with the things they hear on podcasts and YouTube channels. And I think it's way more meaningful to try to make people think and challenge what they believe and say stuff that makes people think things that are thoughtful and try to show both sides of a problem rather than just one and why you're right. But that's very difficult for people to listen to and for people to make. And, I've accepted that if I have this approach where, strong opinion sports is the name of the show, but it's really more moderate opinion sports. I know, I pick a side when I have to, like when I make predictions and stuff, but even then, people could very easily call me wishy-washy and say, wow, you always say, here's why I could be wrong. You acknowledge when you're wrong. It's crazy to me that people like Logan Paul are wildly successful. I don't understand. I as a person who, I always try to be honest and genuine, and I look at people like Logan Paul, who seems like a truly awful person. And I'm like, well, why does this guy get so much support? I don't understand it. I guess you could say I'm a bit jealous. I really am. I don't understand why certain people get the attention they do. And I try to be genuine and honest and straightforward and say what I believe, but also try to be fair. And I feel like those are values that just aren't appreciated or reflected very much in not only the sports media, but in any medium, really. People just don't want a lot of that. They want to be told why they're right. They want to hear hot takes. They want to hear crazy, loud, flamboyant stuff. And I respect that. I guess my theory is probably because people want entertainment. I don't know, but especially politics. Politics is not entertainment to me. That's a real issue that scares me a lot, actually. Anytime politics come up, I'm like, it's not a game. It's not for fun. This is real stuff. It impacts a lot of things. So, again, I try to be genuine and honest. And when nuance is needed, which is often, I try to, present that. And I can sleep at night. I feel good about who I am and the way I do broadcasts. And Prospect Podcast, man, for your show, maybe you would get more views if you were a little more outlandish, a little more daring, a little more bold, a little more black and white. But I don't think that's the right approach because I think on a human level, you miss a lot. So I hope I answered your question, man. That's my answer to that. That's my approach. The next question today comes from Colin. Colin writes in and says, "Hey, Zach, glad to have you back. I was curious what kind of win total you would expect from the Browns if Deshaun Watson plays more like last year than his Texans form." So I actually want to take this question to a bit of a different spot. Because why did Deshaun Watson not play as well last year as he did in Houston? Hey, he was rusty, right? You didn't play football for over a year. I mean, I understand that. But one thing that could happen in Cleveland this year is Cleveland could be trying to fit Deshaun Watson into their system rather than fitting their offensive system around Deshaun Watson. Now, Deshaun Watson's a guy who, wants to be in shotgun. He wants a wide open spread offense that allows him to make better pre-snap reads, easier pre-snap reads, and when the things break down, he's in the shotgun. The gaps are literally wider. It's easier to take off and run. Under center, running play action, that's a tougher offense in my opinion. That's not what I would want to do at quarterback, and that's not how Deshaun Watson succeeded at a high level in Houston. He succeeded in the shotgun, running more of a spread system. I think Cleveland is paying Deshaun Watson too much money to not build around him, to put him into, to try to pigeonhole him into their offense rather than building an offense around him is crazy. But the Browns have a coach, Kevin Stefanski, who has his ideas. He has his system. He has his philosophy. That's what he knows. And I think for him to change his philosophy and build an offense around Deshaun Watson might be asking him to do something he cannot do. So if things go wrong in Cleveland, that's what's going to go wrong. It's because they built a system that works for the coach, but not necessarily is built to the strengths of the quarterback. You watch Sean Payton in Denver. He does whatever is required to put players in a good situation to win. He's run a lot of different systems. You watch Drew Brees, watch Taysom Hill, watch early Drew Brees, watch Jameis Winston, like different variations of so many different systems. I love what Sean Payton does, and I think he's a better coach than Kevin Stefanski. And if things go badly with Kevin Stefanski and Deshaun Watson this year, you're paying Deshaun too much money to not side with him. They're going to get a new coach with an offense that's going to fit to Deshaun Watson if it doesn't work this year with Kevin Stefanski. What's the win total there? I don't know. It's too few. They've got too good of a team to not win a lot of games in Cleveland, and if they fail, it's because the coach didn't fit to the quarterback. Carter said, have you considered putting a handful of your predictions into YouTube shorts? Like if you have 2 or 3 of what might be interesting that people go, what is this guy thinking? I have to go watch the full explanation. I'm just getting ready to get into them, so I don't know which of those might be. But I know you put a ton of work into these and may as well use them to get a few extra views. So should I make YouTube shorts is kind of the question. Maybe with predictions, maybe not. I think predictions would be really bad for TikToks or YouTube shorts. I think that you need the whole context there. I think it wouldn't create it. I don't think the reaction to a YouTube short for prediction would be, oh my gosh, I want to see more of this content. I think it'd be, screw this guy, I hate him, he's wrong. Right? I don't think people, I wonder how often people really go, oh, what else does this creator make? What I could do is find a small moment that's funny or fits in where you edit it, you clip it out as a YouTube short. I've thought about doing that before. I could see myself doing that, but currently I've got no bandwidth for that. I'm exploring the option. I think that it could work as marketing to bring new eyeballs. I don't think you really make money making YouTube shorts or TikToks. What you really do is bring people to another thing. It's marketing material rather than a money-making material. And I think that's valuable because maybe it helps you make more money by getting more eyeballs on your other content. But I'm stretched really thin right now. I'm basically at maximum output. I made 5 episodes this week. It's going to be 38 videos, between I guess it'd be more than that because full podcasts. So it'd be really 32 videos plus another 5 plus another. So it's at minimum going to be 38 videos I made this week in 5 days plus 5 full podcasts. I'm doing everything I can, man. I don't know that I've got a lot of bandwidth to think about what could fit into 60 seconds as a YouTube short, but also B, editing it, figuring it out. There's ways to use AI to do that I might look into, but right now I don't have a huge strategy for YouTube shorts because I just don't have literally the time, energy, whatever. And I know a lot of people are going to write in saying, I want to be your editor. I want to write for you. I want to work for you. I want to help you. I don't feel comfortable having people work for me without getting paid fairly. And right now I can't pay anyone any extra money. So YouTube shorts, maybe someday. Maybe sooner than we think. If AI can solve that problem really quickly, maybe. But right now it's not my number one concern when it comes to making content is to work on the time, energy, use the resources I have to work on YouTube shorts. That's just not a priority to me. But it could be, and I think it's definitely, you have to acknowledge it as an opportunity for growth and for people to new eyeballs to get introduced to the show. Nick writes in, Nick says, howdy, Zach. In episode 555, you talked about how you like the idea of college football allowing quarterbacks to stay for a 5th year of eligibility. But also in recent episodes, you talked about how staying for an extra year for Matt Barkley and Sam Howell was a bad move. I get it. For those two, it was a bad financial move, seeing as they both lost draft stock. But overall, the extra year should benefit them, like you were saying it should for these super seniors. My question is, how is it a good idea for guys like Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr., but a bad idea for Sam Howell and Matt Barkley? So you already said it, but I do think you're confusing different topics as the same thing. Again, financially, once you're viewed as a first-round pick, you should come out. When it comes to just strictly financials, like you want to make a big rookie contract and you're viewed as a first-round pick, you should probably take the money. Matt Barkley lost out on so much money by waiting and staying one more year at USC. It cost him millions and millions of dollars. Now, was Matt Barkley ever going to be a franchise quarterback? Probably not. Limited quarterback, not a huge arm. No. But, Sam Howell and Matt Barkley lost out on millions of dollars by staying an extra year in college. That's a reality. Their draft stock fell. They were viewed as top picks, stayed in college, and fell in the draft a lot. Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. have never been viewed as a top pick. They could be after this year. That's because they're getting better as quarterbacks, and their draft stock can only get better. If Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix wins a Heisman Trophy this year, they're probably going to be a first-round pick, and or even if they're in the running, going to be viewed as a first-round pick. That's going to make them way more money. On top of that, again, do you want to develop as a quarterback or do you want to make a lot of money? You have to ask yourself that. Matt Barkley might have gotten a year better by staying in college, but he got hurt. I think that, I guess really what this boils down to, Nick, is that you can't treat every situation the same. There needs to be nuance included. Every situation is unique. Sam Howell, I don't think got better as a quarterback by staying in college because they really simplified the offense he was running. He lost his help. They ran a lot of RPOs. They ran him a ton his final year in college. It was like, it was so weird what they were doing with Sam Howell. I don't know that he got better by staying in college. That's true. But for Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix, they are going to have another year in their offensive system with talent around them, a chance to win a lot of games. They're going to get better, I think, by staying an extra year in college. So I think both are true. And I stand by that. So every situation is unique. I really think once you're viewed as a first-round pick, you have a financial obligation to yourself, your family, your future kids to come out. Go take the money. Also, you have to acknowledge this, that NFL franchises are incredibly biased, that if you draft a quarterback in the first round, you're going to give him way more opportunities than a quarterback drafted in the 5th round like Sam Howell. If Sam Howell doesn't work in Washington this year, he's done forever. If Sam Howell had come out as a first-round pick, he might have gotten more opportunities. Look at Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is on his 4th team. He went to Cleveland as a number 1 overall pick, but he's viewed as, number 1 overall pick. He's really talented. So then Carolina gave him a shot. Then he went to the Rams. Now Tampa's giving him a shot. If you're a higher draft pick, you get more opportunities than other players because you're viewed psychologically as a better player. So remember that not only does talent and ability play into your opportunities in the NFL, but also just the politics of how you're viewed really impacts how well you do and how many opportunities you get. So, I think that's my answer, Nick. I hope that answers your question well enough. If it doesn't, I like this conversation. It's really fun. And if you have more to write in about it, I would happily talk about this for longer. I just don't know where to go from here. But, Nick, if I didn't answer everything you want to hear or you didn't like how I answered it, please write in again. Because, I really enjoy having a conversation like this. Jason writes in, my nose is so itchy. It's driving me nuts. I've been talking for so long. I think part of it is when you talk for like a couple hours in a row, your nose just gets really dry. You got to breathe out your nose, not your mouth, and it's just a lot. So I'm dying, man. Jason writes in, Jason says, hello, what is up, Zach? I know that previously you had some criticisms for the ManningCast, the Peyton Manning Eli broadcast of Monday Night Football, specifically them spending too much time interviewing their guests instead of paying attention to the game. This past year, I wasn't able to watch their broadcast as my Monday nights have been busy, but I wanted to know if you had changed your opinions on the ManningCast. Did they fix some things, clean them up, or worse, have they leaned further into the frustrating distractions? Do you have any excitement or expectations for next year of broadcasts? Man, I don't know. There's some good broadcasters this year. When it comes to the ManningCast, though, I have no idea what happened last year. They lost me. I didn't even give them a shot. I remember wanting to hear the Manning brothers talk about the game I'm watching. And they had like LeBron James on. I'm like, LeBron James doesn't know anything about football. You're not going to ask him about that third down decision to run the play they ran. I wanted to hear two brothers that have good chemistry and played in the NFL 4 years and won multiple Super Bowls talk about the football game. Not interview an actor, not interview The Rock or LeBron or whatever. I want to hear them talk about the game. And if you want to interview people, that's great, but that's a different show. If Peyton Manning wants to interview LeBron, he should, but it shouldn't be during a football broadcast. I always thought that was so weird. They were overthinking it, and I don't know that's Peyton Manning's fault. It's the people producing the show. Probably ESPN had that idea, but man, that's all I wanted. All I wanted was Peyton and Eli, two brothers that know the game incredibly well and have good chemistry commenting on the football game, and we didn't get that. And I was like, what are we doing here, man? Maybe it was better last fall. I don't know. I was literally living in a truck. Last football season was a weird time of my life, and I definitely didn't spend any of my time watching the ManningCast. I will give it another shot this year. I'll report back, Jason. I like talking about broadcasting. Actually, it's really fun. I like the nuance of it. I like thinking about it. I think it's interesting for people that listen to broadcasts. I like hearing stuff that I'm listening to dissected, and I think that's another angle I can come at when I talk about football is the way it's produced and the broadcasting. But I didn't watch more of the ManningCast, but they just drove me nuts. That LeBron James you're supposed to commentate on the game, not talk to random famous people. It drove me nuts. I hated it so much. George writes in. George says, "Hello, Zach. I'm a new Patreon subscriber. Thank you, George. I appreciate you. Thank you for your in-depth analysis on football and allowing us to support your passion in a small way. I wanted to ask you about quarterbacks taking the next step in their evolution and growth. More specifically, in the past few years, we have seen Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen take that leap forward as franchise quarterbacks. Who do you see for this upcoming year as being the next one to make that big leap? Is there an under-the-radar guy that you feel no one is paying attention to? Who's even eligible for that, to an early guy who could make a big leap? I guess like Kenny Pickett, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. But George, the question is like, are you asking who could become a proven franchise quarterback? Like Mac Jones has an opportunity to prove himself as a franchise quarterback in New England this fall. But I think a more interesting question is who's going to prove themselves to be elite? Who's going to take a step forward and launch themselves into the top 5 quarterback spot, quarterback conversation in the NFL? I think Jared Goff has a really interesting opportunity to prove himself this year and take a step forward as a quarterback and, win more playoff games and show he can do it in Detroit. That's a great opportunity. But the guy that really, he's not under the radar exactly because he's a superstar, but I think Lamar Jackson has a huge opportunity this fall to look better and get better this fall and improve as a passer and win throwing the football. I'm all in on Lamar Jackson. I really believe in him this fall. I think it's going to be awesome. And so that's the guy that I think, weirdly enough, could really prove himself and take a step forward as a quarterback. All right, I got to take a second. I got to blow my nose real quick. Give me 1 second. All right, we're back. Kenny wrote in. Kenny said this on Patreon. Hey, Zaddy. Whoa, Kenny. I don't know how I feel about that. I actually weirdly like it, but calling me Zaddy is a bit weird. Anyway, hey, Zaddy. I'm sure you saw that Arizona State and Utah both applied for the Big 12. My question is, what do you think will happen to the real OSU? Oregon State. I like the team and don't want to be a part of the lesser conference like the Mountain West. Anyway, thanks for reading this. Zaddy. Man. You know what I got to say? Zaddy sends me off into a different train of thought, which is that during I think it was the Eagles prediction, I said a couple times, like, we love filling holes. And I looked at the camera and was like, and no one commented on that. I was disappointed that I made this, I thought, kind of an interesting, clever innuendo. Not clever, that's definitely not clever. But a funny moment with a little innuendo, and no one said anything about it. I was like, totally unnoticed. Like, man, that's disappointing to me. Kenny, what's going to happen to Oregon State or Washington State as the Pac-12 falls apart and no one knows who's going to play? No one knows where Oregon State is going to play next year. But Oregon State or Washington State, I went to Washington State, so I'm going to include them in this conversation. That's why I think that this conversation is interesting because Oregon State and Washington State, they need money for next fall. I mean, their universities rely heavily. Their athletic departments are propped up by college football, their programs. And they need a place to play, but they need a place to make money. And joining the Mountain West is a possibility, but I mean, the budget cuts could be catastrophic for Oregon State and Washington State, who've come to rely on the money that the college football program brings in. And if you go down to the Big Sky, even like D1 AA football, fewer scholarships, way less money. I mean, I don't know. If the money gets too bad, they're going to be really scared. And I think they are really scared at Oregon State and Washington State. And, you know, this is going to really impact the universities. They're going to have to make a lot of cuts because, again, I'm telling you, football at Washington State props up a lot of other stuff. Same with Oregon State. And they are left out to dry. Everyone found a conference but them, and I don't know why you would want them. I went to Washington State, but there's nothing there. There's no history. It's a dinky little program. They went to a Rose Bowl once a long time ago, right? They're not interesting. They're not nationally relevant at all. They're not a draw. They're Maryland football in the Big Ten. Maryland football is lucky to be there. Some of the teams in, Colorado got the deal of a lifetime. They found a way to get $30 million from the Big 12. And they got there first before Utah, before Arizona State, who I think they're going to make more money than I think they're getting an equal profit share that we may not see the other three, Arizona State, Arizona, and Utah get. Man, Oregon State and Washington State are screwed. I don't know what they're going to do, but financially, this is going to have major implications for their programs. And really what this makes me want to do is talk to the people who work locally. I've got a lot of friends who work at Washington State or do stuff and are connected there. I'm gonna follow this a little bit and go see what people say because I'm really interested how they think it's gonna affect them financially because I think it's gonna maybe even ruin them. Joshua writes in. Joshua says, "Let me check my text. I wonder if my roommate went to the beach and it's 9:07. She's probably back by now, so I have no idea what's happening there. I hope she's not bothered by me recording." Joshua wrote in and said, "Where is it?" Said, "Hey Zach. Out of all of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL, so currently QB1 on their teams, which would you least want as your quarterback? For me, it's Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is extremely limited, and if anything goes wrong, you will lose the game with him as the quarterback." I don't know if I agree with that one. I hope Daniel Jones is amazing. He's like physically so gifted, and I'd love to see him kill it this year. The quarterback to me that's overrated that I wouldn't want, the guy who currently I would not, he's a starting quarterback in the NFL that I would not want to be my starting quarterback is Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is overpaid, overrated. He's only got an average arm talent. He's average throwing the football. I think he's struggling a lot, and that's going to really impact how the locker room views him. I do not feel good about Dak Prescott this fall in Dallas. And what's going on there is terrifying. He's throwing picks on picks on picks, and I worry that the coaching staff is going to ruin him. But what are they really ruining? How great of a player really is Dak Prescott? I'm not sure. I've been waiting for years hoping he's going to make it, and he never has, so I gave up on him. And Dak Prescott, to me, it's an overrated, overpaid quarterback that is a mistake Jerry Jones, the owner, made. Part of why I wouldn't want him is I wouldn't want that contract. I'd take Dak Prescott at $10 million a year. That'd be an amazing deal. But he needs a great team around him, and even then, he's still not that amazing. And so, the other guy that comes to mind is Ryan Tannehill, but Dak Prescott's the one that really, really sticks in my craw that like, oh gosh. I like him as a human. Seems like a nice guy. Although, again, I think as he struggles more and more, that locker room in Dallas is going to become more and more frustrated with him, more and more skeptical of him. His standing in the locker room is going to be weird and tenuous, and you can't talk trash to your teammates when you're struggling a lot. And I don't know. I'm worried about Dak Prescott. I wouldn't want him as my quarterback. Sean writes in. Sean says, "Hey, Zach and friends. As a lifelong Browns fan, I've had to recently reconcile with a lot of my fandom in the last year with Deshaun Watson coming in. alongside coming to terms with loving a team while disliking a player, have also become more aware of some of the recent sketchy behind-the-scenes actions of the NFL in general. Speaking out harshly against Deshaun Watson while actively covering for Dan Snyder, the owner of Washington, and it was horrible. Removing clauses in the rules, allowing for players to criticize owners in disciplinary hearings, etc. Frankly, it's been making me question whether I should be a fan of the NFL at all. I guess my question is, have you ever thought about it? And if so, how do you approach it? So how do your question, I think, is it ethical to be an NFL fan? The NFL is a corporation owned by billionaires, not million, but billionaires with a B. And I think that it's like politics. They're all evil. It's all nonsense, all ridiculous. But that's also all of entertainment. Anyone funding football, movies, TV shows, it's all disgusting. It's all got an ugly dark side that you got to kind of look past if you're going to enjoy the entertainment you're getting provided. Hey, thankfully, Strong Opinion Sports isn't owned by an awful billionaire. Now, we're struggling financially, but I can tell you what, we're not billionaires here at Strong Opinion Sports. Actually, we're doing okay financially. The show's comeback is going better than I thought. And hey, support me on Patreon, patreon.com/Jack Schomler if you like the show. I allow football to be entertaining and let go of what I can't control. It is what it is. But what I will say is that fear of facing the NFL, how do I say this without... Where's film analysis? Anyone ever thought about that? Why hasn't film analysis happened more? Part of it's because it's hard. It's a difficult thing to make. But part of it is because I don't think it's a reliable business strategy. I don't know that you can build a channel only around film analysis because what you're doing is putting yourself really at risk of getting shut down by the NFL. And the thought of facing the NFL made me want to seek out a network, actually. It made me interested in, like, should I go get help and protection? Now, I can't, I don't know. If I got a really big offer from a network where they had an editing team and producers and a lot of help making the show, I think at this point in my life, I would probably take the money and do it. But the caveats that come along with that are horrifying, right? You can't do what you want. You risk getting shut down. You risk being limited and controlled, and that's really hard for me. I like doing what I want to do my way. In some ways, I hate the NFL. I mean, they made it very hard for me to do film analysis, and it really messed with my channel. It messed with my life. It scared me a lot. So the NFL is not it's a corporation. I mean, it is. It's a business, and they're not evil, but they're a corporation, and there's a lot of downsides that come along with that, and I don't want to say anymore because I'm actually scared. I don't want to be on the NFL's radar at all. I would hate it if anyone at NFL's headquarters watched this show. I just want to slide under the radar, be happy, be allowed to talk about the thing I like, which is I love football. But they are a big, terrifying, powerful force in the world. But I guess the point of your question really, Sean, was that Sean's question, I believe? It was. I love football, and I think the NFL's got the best football in the world. They're just amazing. College football is really cool. College football drives me nuts because I think it's scumbags making lots of money off of poor college kids, and that feels weird to me. It's getting better with the NIL happening, and players like Johnny Manziel now could get paid a lot of money, but that's why I initially didn't cover college football, is I just hated the way they profited off of young athletes. And the NFL is the best athletes in the world playing the game at the highest level, which I love. I think it's amazing. And I can let my distaste for certain parts of the way the business is run in the NFL get totally outweighed by the fact that I love football. And I think the game is played at the highest level, and it's absolutely amazing to watch. Tadhg writes in, Tadhg says, "Hey, Zach's eyeballs. Could Bill Belichick ever be on the hot seat in New England?" I think eventually Bill Belichick could, but he won 6 Super Bowls. I mean, the guy's got a really, really long leash. He can basically do whatever he wants in New England. And the Patriots still have fan support, too, so it's not like keeping Bill Belichick is hurting the team financially. Even if they're losing, they're fine. And I think it'd be cool to see Bill Belichick win another Super Bowl without Tom Brady. That would be awesome. It'd be a huge climbing the mountain moment for a second time for him. I know he did it a lot, but I think for himself, he wants to win another Super Bowl without Tom Brady to prove to himself he could do it. I think he also just likes coaching. He's the kind of guy, he likes going to work every day. He's going to retire when they kick him out. I think he's an old dude who's like, what else am I going to do? He's a guy he works. That's what he does. It's an East Coast mentality. You work till you're dead because he enjoys it. And I don't know. I think eventually maybe Bill Belichick walks away or gets fired, but I think he's going to coach until he doesn't want to coach, quite frankly. And what he did for New England, the Super Bowls he won, it gave him a free pass to basically coach until he's just can't do it anymore. Final question of the day comes from Balin. It's a long one. It's a long write-in, but it's interesting. Yeah, we'll see. I've got a response already, but we'll see how I feel after reading this long write-in. Balin says, "Hi, Zach. A little rebuttal to your Chargers season prediction. I see your concerns with Brandon Staley. All us Chargers fans do. But I think you're forgetting a few key things in your prediction here. Brandon Staley does still have a winning record in his first 2 years as head coach. Barely, but he does. This team, including Justin Herbert, was injured to hell and back last year, and Joe Lombardi, he writes, was coaching the offense, and they still made the playoffs. What you don't see, and of course you wouldn't unless you're a fan who follows the team religiously, is that this defense is coming together, and Herbert is finally entering another tier of leadership now that he has an offensive coordinator he really jives with in Kellen Moore. And the players feel that, and the energy is different. Herbert seems like he's being let off the chain, and this is his offense now. He's finally actually reading defenses and making his own protection checks, changing formations and plays, and letting it fly downfield. Also, it sounds like the Chargers are actually developing an identity in the run game. The defense has a new feel and energy with Derek Ainsley as their defensive coordinator, and it seems like he's getting guys to mesh much better than the past defensive coordinators. And these DBs are rock solid. And the run defense, from what we can gather, is improved. The general consensus is these changes, as well as some player development and decent rookies, are worth at least 2 more wins, likely splitting with the Chiefs 1 extra win over last year here. And the Broncos getting a sweep of Vegas, another extra win here, and for a record of 12-5. So that is why he's got the Chargers going 12-5. The sane among us are under no delusion this is a Super Bowl team because it's not as long as Staley is coach. But it can be a dominant team that makes the divisional or conference championship game as long as they stay healthy. I know that was long, but you asked for thoughts and you got them. Would love to hear your thoughts on my analysis. I actually like that, man. Maybe Josh Allen and Justin Herbert are going to morph into very similar players where they score a lot of points. They've got a defensive head coach. They're held back by their coaching staff, in my opinion. I like that reality where Justin Herbert's just lighting it up and leading this team just by sheer will. I mean, that's possible, man. I want to see Justin Herbert get a great coach. He's a rare talent, but Justin Herbert's like one of the most gifted quarterbacks on the planet and probably ever. Like, Justin Herbert is so amazing. And so, yeah, if he scores a lot of points, what I'd like to see, honestly, I could see a world where Brandon Staley gets fired and Kellen Moore gets elevated to the head coach in Dallas. And if I were him, if I became head coach and I'm Kellen Moore, I would hire Ron Rivera as my defensive coordinator. He's probably going to get fired in Washington this year. Hire a coach like that Mike Vrabel, Ron Rivera, someone who's been around the NFL, been a head coach before, can help you. If you're Kellen Moore next year as a first-year coach in LA with the Chargers, do what Sean McVay did by hiring Wade Phillips. Hire a veteran defensive coordinator who's been a head coach before, who can help you with coaching stuff and make coaching decisions when you run into stuff you've never had to deal with before as a head coach in the NFL. So I like the possibility of Kellen Moore being a home run and maybe becoming the head coach in LA for the Chargers. Here's what I wrote initially, and you kind of changed my mind, but I don't want to read what I wrote as a response to you, Balin. I said, I'm not going to bet on the Chargers or give them a vote of confidence because I've kind of chosen my side, right? I said they're going to lose. I don't believe in Brandon Staley. We'll see if they prove me wrong. But everything you said made sense, and I think we'll see it. I want to see if Justin Herbert, can he, by sheer will, lead this team against, I think, kind of a blustering, frustrating coach to watch, Brandon Staley. we'll see, man. I could see a world where Justin Herbert takes the Chargers farther because of their high-powered offense just dominating. And I will, in my predictions round 2, I will consider what you said, because that's a compelling argument that Justin Herbert's just so good and so dominant on offense that they score if they score 35 points a game and are dominating people, I can see that being a winning formula in LA with the Chargers. So we'll see, man. Time will tell. Balin, that's a long write-in. I know you put a lot of effort in that. I really appreciate that. That's a thoughtful write-in that is valuable and interesting, and I'm very grateful for that. Guys, I love you so much. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great day. I'm dead, man. I need a break. I need to swim tomorrow and read a little bit. I've got a lot of work I want to do for next week, actually. So I can see myself working for like 8 hours tomorrow anyway, but it'll be a shorter day tomorrow. And I love you. I appreciate you. We'll be back next week. Next week, regular schedule, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Episodes were coming out late because it's a lot of work to prepare these predictions episodes. It's just a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. Next week, episodes will come out faster, quicker, be a little bit shorter, I think, more news-driven. It'll be a really fun week. This is a heavy week, but it's necessary to do predictions. I really think it's valuable. I get to know the teams really well. I get to throw out a prediction. I get to kind of set my expectations and your guys' expectations for the year, how it's going to go. I think predictions are very important, but I am emotionally, physically, everything. I am drained. I am really tired, and it's been a long, long week, and I'm excited for next week to be a lighter and news-driven and not as heavy on the writing and research. And hopefully, I feel behind. I felt behind all week, so I'm really excited for next week, and I hope you liked it. I put blood, sweat, and tears into these shows, and all the people on Patreon, I support you. I love you. I guess you support me. I love you, and I'm very grateful for your support. So thank you so much. Have a great day. I'll see you on Monday, and bam, we are done.